My husband Charles tells me he's going to marry the woman he's been seeing and asks for a divorce. Let's not waste time with property division, just leave quickly, Sharon taunts, savoring my misery. Donald, too, is infatuated with a woman he met at a bar. They don't want to live with me anymore. Fine. I'll leave, just as they wish. But before that, I have a few things to say. My name is Joy Len. A name meant to bring happiness, joy and Len, but life has not been as joyful as I had hoped. Yet, today, at 50, my days are filled with happiness, and I can look back and laugh at the past. Let me take you back to when I was 35. I was about to celebrate my 10th wedding anniversary with Charles. We hadn't been blessed with children, and it pained me to hear people's casual comments, "Do you have kids?" or "Children are wonderful, you know." Conversations with Charles had dwindled over the years. He had been promoted and became busier with work, traveling frequently. I was working, too. We hardly saw each other. No wonder we never had children. Well, this too is a form of marriage, I told myself. Children or not, it doesn't matter. Then, one day, our family grew in an unexpected way. Not with the arrival of a baby, but with the intrusion of my in-laws, two people who seemed more like demons than parents. Apparently, since the day we got married, they had been pressuring Charles to let them move in. For years, he resisted. But eventually, he weighed the hassle of refusing against the inconvenience of living together and decided that giving in would be easier. "Hey, I never agreed to this," I protested. "You're hardly ever home," Charles dismissed me. "It won't make a difference." Maybe for him. But for me? At first, I thought it wouldn't be so bad if my in-laws were decent people. But even before moving in, they had been relentless with their questions. "When are you having kids?" Sharon would always say, "The more children you have, the better." "But you only had Charles, didn't you?" I once pointed out. Living with them turned out to be even worse than I feared. From day one, Donald made an announcement. "We won't be contributing to any household expenses or giving you a single penny from our pension." Sharon, with a sickeningly sweet smile, added, "Let's go with that arrangement." What kind of arrangement was that? Even Charles chimed in. "We both work, so we can manage." So he was one of them, too. Until then, I had never been particularly dissatisfied with Charles. I had always thought a husband who didn't get angry and worked hard was good enough. But now, all the complaints I had suppressed came rushing in. As time passed, I realized why my in-laws had insisted on moving in. Donald often went out late at night. I believed him when he said he was drinking with friends, until I found a nightclub point card and a business card with the name Nancy written on it in his laundry. So, that's where he was going. Of course, I meant it in the worst way possible. No wonder he couldn't contribute to the household, he was spending his money on Nancy. Meanwhile, Sharon's harassment escalated. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. But over time, her cruelty grew more evident, her cunning nature revealing itself in ways I hadn't anticipated. And that was just the beginning. I thought she was being kind. I could have endured it if it had just been about the way I folded laundry or seasoned my cooking. But there were times when Sharon deliberately called me by the name of Charles's ex-girlfriend. Each time, she would apologize, saying, "I remember her strongly because she was the first girlfriend Charles introduced me to. I didn't do it on purpose, I'm sorry." At first, I dismissed it, thinking Sharon was old and forgetful. But as it continued, I realized something was off. Then, there was the bathroom, always dirty when I went in. Initially, I assumed it was Charles or someone else who had used it before me. But when no one else ever complained, I had no doubt it was Sharon. Other instances followed. One snowy night, assuming everyone had bathed, Sharon unplugged the bathtub, leaving me to shower in freezing water. She also took my favorite necklace without asking, and then lost it. Each time, she feigned innocence. "I didn't do it on purpose. I just wasn't thinking. I'm sorry." Accidentally calling someone by the wrong name? Possible. Forgetting to clean up? Understandable. But taking jewelry without permission and losing it? That was no accident. I began to suspect that all of this was deliberate harassment. My suspicions were confirmed when I saw Sharon sitting angrily at the dining table, muttering, "My dinner is late because Joy Len came home late." That's when I knew this was intentional. Come to think of it, Sharon hadn't lifted a finger around the house since moving in. She threw her socks inside out into the laundry, tossed bottles into the trash without removing the labels, and created minor inconveniences every chance she got. She complained about late meals, messy sheets, and sometimes even threw things. It finally hit me, our home hadn't gained a child, it had gained two, both big, both stubborn, and both utterly exhausting. After long days as a caregiver, all I wanted was to collapse into bed. I tolerated Sharon's behavior in silence because I simply didn't have the energy to argue. I just wanted rest, even if only for a moment. At first, I didn't notice, but Sharon knew about Donald's night outings. When an actress appeared on TV, she turned to him and said, "Donald, don't you like girls like her?" "You do, don't you?" "The actress's name?" "Nancy, the same as the girl from the bar." Donald went pale. After that, I asked Sharon, "Are you okay with Donald going out like that?" She responded, "If I get a divorce, I'll be a woman with a divorce history at this age, right? That's miserable. It looks bad in society. Of course, I don't like it, but he's just playing with professionals at the bar. If he's not serious, I can accept it." She wasn't staying with Donald out of love. She was staying because she feared how society would see her. I couldn't understand it. Turning a blind eye to infidelity must have caused her immense internal stress. And her way of coping? Harassing me. By tormenting me, she could both vent her frustrations and avoid housework. It was killing two birds with one stone. I was certain. I finally understood why Sharon had been so insistent on living with Charles. Ever since his parents moved in, Charles had been making more and more excuses to stay away from home, often claiming he had to work overtime. This house was rotten from its very foundation, and if I stayed any longer, I feared I might end up crushed under its weight. Then, one day, just 6 months after we started living together, Charles, who rarely had the same day off as me, dropped an unexpected bombshell. Let's get a divorce. It was a bolt from the blue. As it turned out, Charles had been having an affair with a former classmate for years. He now wanted to marry her, and I had been completely oblivious. Apparently, their relationship had started just before his promotion. I had believed he was working hard for our future, but in reality, it had all been for her. Had I been so exhausted that I failed to notice the signs? I had always thought affairs were something that only happened in movies or to men like Donald. But maybe, in this house, infidelity was just a way of life. Once the house is ready, my girlfriend and I will be moving in. You can take your things and leave, Charles declared without a hint of remorse. Sharon, stunned, asked, "What about us?" "You can stay. My girlfriend doesn't mind sharing," he replied casually. "What a generous girl," Sharon muttered sarcastically. Donald chimed in, chuckling, "Yeah, she must be a good one, especially if she's cuter than Joy Len." Sharon shot him a glare, as if to say, "There you go again with women." But Charles and Donald just laughed, completely indifferent to the pain they were causing. These people were beyond hope. I took a deep breath and responded, "Fine, I accept the divorce. There's a memorial ceremony in Atlanta soon, right? Can you wait until then?" Charles scoffed. "Ha, planning to enjoy one last free feast before you go? How pathetic. There's no way I'm taking a woman who's divorcing me. Just leave already." Pathetic? Who was really the pathetic one here? "No," I said calmly, "I was planning to move out that day. Going back home after being cheated on is embarrassing, and finding a new place takes time. I figured it would work out around then." Charles crossed his arms, considering. "If that's the case, fine." What he didn't know was that I had my own plans. Cheating on me and then acting high and mighty? He had underestimated me. I was going to destroy everything. A week later, the day of my long-awaited revenge finally arrived. That morning, Charles, Sharon, and Donald all left early to attend the memorial ceremony in Atlanta. They wouldn't be back until evening. Perfect. I had hired a garbage collection service. As soon as they arrived, we began loading everything into the truck, every piece of furniture, every appliance, every trace of my in-laws. The sofa, the microwave, Charles's beloved new vacuum cleaner, even Sharon's mountains of clothes. Nothing was spared. The refrigerator and its contents? Gone. Minimalism is truly wonderful. With each item discarded, it felt like I was shedding the burdens they had placed on me. Next, the movers arrived. They took my few personal belongings and transported them to my new place. By evening, the house was completely empty. Then, right on cue, the front door creaked open. They were home. I stood at the entrance with a pleasant smile, ready to greet them one last time. Charles frowned. "What? You're still here?" Sharon and Donald looked equally puzzled. "Oh, that's harsh. I thought it would be nice to see each other one last time before I left," I said sweetly. Charles smirked. "Ha, you still care about me?" He chuckled, acting as if I was some love-struck fool. "Fine, let's have a meal together one last time." Sharon sighed. "Charles, you're too kind." Donald, beaming, patted his son on the back. "That's my boy." I bit my tongue to keep from laughing. "A meal? That would be lovely." Charles, still wearing his arrogant grin, headed toward the living room. Sharon and Donald followed, expecting to settle into their usual spots. And then... Huh? What the? Charles froze, eyes wide in disbelief. Sharon, annoyed, peeked into the living room after him, and then gasped. Donald, too, stepped forward and stammered, "WH what? The fridge? No, even the furniture. The appliances. Why is there nothing here?" I crossed my arms and feigned surprise. "Oh. You didn't say anything about leaving the furniture behind. I assumed you and your nice girlfriend would bring in new things. Besides, you told me to take my things and leave, so I did." Charles's face turned red with fury. "You crazy." Now, I cut in, stepping past him. "Aren't you happy? It's a fresh start for you and your new love. No need to thank me. Enjoy your empty house." With that, I walked out, closing the door behind me. As I stepped onto the street, I took a deep breath of the crisp evening air. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. I threw them out. The house feels much bigger now, doesn't it? I thought it would be bad to leave old furniture behind for your new life with your girlfriend. Consider it my parting gift." "Threw them out? Why?" Charles stammered, his face pale with shock. "Weren't you preparing to move?" "I've already moved." "You throw away things you don't need when you move, right? Have you forgotten? Most of the things we bought when we got married were purchased with my money. Nothing bad will happen just because I, who didn't need them, threw them away." Charles pointed at me, his mouth moving, but no words came out. He was too stunned to speak. "With this, I'll forego any division of property," I continued with a smirk. "Well, not that there's much left to divide anyway." Sharon, furious at my composure, seethed, "What have you done?" I tilted my head mockingly. "I'll return that phrase to your foolish son. There are limits to indecency, cheating on your wife and then telling her to leave because you're remarrying. Wasn't your upbringing at fault? How dare you speak to me like that? You were a terrible daughter-in-law. Do you still consider yourself my mother-in-law?" I laughed. "To me, you're just another old lady." Sharon muttered, so ungracious, shaking with rage. It was a secret, but watching her lose control was oddly satisfying. "Don't you remember? If I request a division of this house, you can't refuse. Without this house, where will you two strangers live? You sold your family home, right?" "Yes." The in-laws had sold their house when they moved in with us. "We won't need it anymore," they had said. This house was their lifeline. They had sided with their son's affair, likely thinking, as long as there's a house and a housemaid, anything goes. Hearing my words, perhaps sensing their mistake, Donald intervened. Now, let's settle this amicably," he said, pretending to be a peacemaker. I smirked. "Yes, let's do that. Just like the wise old man, Donald, suggests." "Exactly. You know what I'm talking about, Joy Lynn. Of course, I replied sweetly. By the way, Donald, wasn't your cell phone broken today? Huh? Oh, yeah. I realized it after leaving the house, it wouldn't turn on. If charging doesn't work, I guess I'll have to take it to the store. No need for that. Your phone is right here. I pulled Donald's phone from my pocket. Huh? Two identical phones? Donald's eyes darted between them in confusion. I switched them just before you left today. The one I have is the real one. The one you had was a used one I bought. I removed the battery, so it wouldn't turn on. What? Since you aren't tech savvy, I figured you'd just assume it was broken or out of battery. Seems like my plan worked perfectly. Donald's face turned red. Why would you do that? I shrugged. Why, indeed. Oh, speaking of which, you received an email today, from your beloved Nancy. She said she had a great time the other day. You two email each other daily, don't you? Such a close friendship. Donald gasped. Sharon turned to him, her glare sharp as a blade. So, Donald, I continued, feigning excitement, you were out with Nancy the other day? Woohoo, more lively than with Sharon. But you really should put a lock on your phone if you're cheating, it makes it too easy to get caught. Stop. Stop it, Joy Lynn. Donald spluttered. But I thought cheating was wrong. Charles cheated on me, and it hurt. I know exactly how Sharon feels. So, I did something nice in return. I texted Nancy, I'm bored. Let's break up. Donald's face drained of color. She was furious. Apparently, she was only dealing with you because you conveniently gave her money. Good thing you broke up safely. Oh, and by the way, Sharon, this is Nancy, your competition. Take a good look. I held up a photo of Nancy and Donald together, watching the storm brew in Sharon's eyes. That's when it happened. Charles's expression turned dark. A chilling, unreadable look crossed his face. Why, my girlfriend is... he muttered. Everyone but Charles gasped. What's going on, Charles? Donald asked, his voice unsteady. What are you to Nancy? No, that's my line. Dad, why are you taking pictures with Nancy? Because I'm her boyfriend, obviously. No. Nancy is my girlfriend. I raised an eyebrow. Isn't your girlfriend your classmate? We just met at a bar and started hanging out. A moment of silence passed. Then chaos erupted. Father and son, dating the same woman, turned on each other. Their pointless argument over who Nancy truly belonged to escalated into a full-blown brawl, hands gripping each other's hair in a ridiculous scuffle. The fight ended when Charles yanked out a significant chunk of Donald's already thinning hair. Donald stared at the strands in his son's hand, his face lifeless, soulless. I clapped my hands together. Well, I'm off to my new place. Thanks for everything. I'll be claiming compensation for the affair next time. Bye. Sharon gasped. Compensation? I grinned. I said no property division, but I never said I'd forgive an affair. Sharon's fury exploded. Swinging the bag in her hand, she began beating Donald furiously. Donald stood motionless, his spirit completely crushed. Watching the sheer absurdity of it all, I couldn't stop smiling as I hopped onto my beloved scooter and sped away. Although it was all behind me now, in my mind, it was the most satisfying ending I could have ever imagined. As I rode through the crisp night air, I felt like Tom Cruise in Top Gun, free, exhilarated, and untouchable. It had been a long time since I had experienced such a refreshing ride, and in that moment, I realized something: this was the best I had felt in years. Later, when I formally filed for divorce and included a claim for alimony, Charles suddenly changed his tune. "Please wait," he pleaded. "Sharon is also considering divorce, and if things go south, we might all lose our homes. Circumstances could change. We need to save as much money as possible." He even tried to appeal to my emotions. "Don't you think it's pitiful for us, people who once lived together, to be in such a difficult situation?" But I didn't care. I moved forward with the divorce proceedings without hesitation, taking as much money as I could from both Charles and his affair partner. When I finally claimed my alimony, I felt like a bit of an outlaw, but I had done nothing wrong. I had only taken what was rightfully mine. Well, maybe tampering with his phone was a little wrong. In the end, Sharon divorced Donald around the same time. It turned out that Donald and Nancy's affair had been going on for over 5 years. That was the breaking point for Sharon. Apparently, she could forgive casual flings from bar hopping, but a real, private relationship was unacceptable. I didn't quite understand her logic, but different people have different thresholds for betrayal, I suppose. Regardless, it didn't matter anymore. None of us were married now. Sharon sued Donald for alimony, just as I had sued Charles. In the end, the saying "blood will out" held true. Every member of that wretched family scattered in different directions. Sharon, having been betrayed by Donald, seemed to develop a general disdain for men, including Charles, who had abandoned me in much the same way. As a result, after the divorce, Charles and Sharon grew distant. They only exchanged words when absolutely necessary. Donald, now jobless, turned to Charles for help, but Charles rejected him. He was barely scraping by himself. With no support, Donald ended up working part-time and living in a cheap hotel. As for Charles, he juggled multiple jobs to survive. He had planned to marry Nancy, but reality hit him hard. Nancy had never been interested in marriage. She had seen both Charles and Donald as nothing more than walking wallets, convenient sources of money. It turned out she had multiple men like them. Charles, deluded by the nostalgia of their school days, had mistaken their connection for something deeper. In his mind, she was the one. In reality, she had only been using him. In the end, both father and son were discarded, completely useless to Nancy. From my perspective, since I was leaving anyway, I figured I might as well bring everything down with me. And I did. Watching that toxic family self-destruct was nothing short of satisfying. They never valued one another. They only cared about themselves. Their downfall was inevitable. Looking back, I'm grateful I escaped that household. Now, even though I still come home exhausted from work, my life is my own. I no longer waste my time serving someone who doesn't appreciate me. I have freedom, something I never had in my marriage. Back then, I was so consumed by my duties as a wife that I barely saw my friends. Now, I have the time to reconnect. I travel with my college friends on weekends, indulge in hobbies I had long forgotten, and even rediscovered my love for music. In college, I was part of a choir. Now, I've joined a karaoke club, and surprisingly, I keep winning competitions, sometimes even taking home cash prizes. Thanks to that, my wallet is always comfortably full. At work, a colleague suggested I host a karaoke event for the residents. It was a massive success. Hearing them cheer and say, "You're amazing," filled me with a happiness I hadn't felt in years. It turns out that joy isn't just about receiving, it's about sharing it with others. By the way, my go-to performances are Unchained Melody and My Heart Will Go On. Older songs have such beautiful lyrics, though I suppose I should catch up on modern music. My days aren't glamorous, but they are fulfilling. I am surrounded by kind coworkers, loyal friends, and residents who feel like family. For the first time in a long time, I feel like me again. From now on, I won't just seek happiness, I'll spread it. All right. Time to get back to work. I have a birthday to celebrate today. And I intend to make it unforgettable.